So I wanted to have a little discussion about some of these domains covered in the teacher leader standards. And have you consider at your school whether or not you feel like these things are supported in terms of the teacher leaders? One of the questions I asked you was identify a teacher leader at your school and which of the at least three of these characteristics do they embody? And does your school really have a culture that supports teacher leaders, or is it pretty much a top-down, administrative-driven, don't come up with stuff, do what we tell you sort of situation? And this is something also to keep in mind when you are applying for jobs and looking for districts to work in, is what kind of support do they give for teacher leaders? Is there lots of professional development? Are there opportunities to grow? This would be something that would be significant because, your first couple of years, you may not be too concerned with that. You're just pretty much trying to figure out what you're supposed to do and the content you have to cover and standards. But once you get going, you will find that there will be areas of interest that you're passionate about, that you feel like you want to make some significant differences in, and you want to be in a place where you're supported to do that. So that's what this first point is addressing, this collaborative culture to support educator development and student learning. Oh, darn this trackpad. Okay, so the second domain is looking at research to improve practice in student learning. And what I find is significant about all of these, if we are educators, we need to model for our students. Our students, they look to us for leadership, both explicitly and implicitly, as do you looking to your professors. So I need to stay current with the latest research. I need to model working collaboratively and being a leader because you look to us as your students look to you. So these are things we need to consider as educators and working in schools and working in systems. So being current, what's the current research? What does it say about teaching and learning? So then we're looking at professional learning opportunities for continuous improvement. So designing and facilitating professional development. And there's a whole world of research about quality professional development, it being ongoing, it being regular, it giving teachers time to go from the learning part to a collaborative process where they're exploring things in their classroom, then they go back and revisit, and then they go back to their classrooms and try things. And that's really where the strong professional development happens. So again, does the culture of your school or your district support that sort of thing? And are you supported in going to professional conferences and meeting with colleagues and working with, in the secondary, working with people in your content area across district or across the state, or working in your grade level team? So these are all things you want to keep in mind. Finally, just looking at improvement in instruction, and this could be including technology or not. Technology is not the be-all and end-all, as we found out last week, but it's this attitude of ongoing learning and reflective practice. And part of this can come from your classroom research, like that, I'm totally blanking on it, but where you're designing projects and finding out how they're going. Promoting the use of assessment and data. So teacher leaders, we have lots of data, almost excessive amounts of data, and sometimes teachers have a hard time wading through it and making sense of it. So leaders help guide the use of data, identify what is significant for classrooms and schools, and provide reflective feedback about that. Improving outreach and collaboration with families and communities. I began working with families and my community as a classroom teacher. I taught middle school English language arts, and as part of the 7th grade curriculum, they would study the Renaissance. So I would do projects with Shakespeare with my kids as they were getting into the Renaissance time frame in their history classes, and we would collaborate on projects together. And I was also teaching drama for several years, and I thought, rather than putting on a separate production, if we did a Renaissance, we would do a Renaissance fair at my school where the drama kids would perform Shakespeare scenes from Shakespeare plays. These were 8th graders, so I wasn't going to produce an entire Shakespeare play, but we would do scenes from it. And then my English students, my other kids, would put on the fair, and each group would come up with a project. Like we did a living chessboard one year. We did made Peter Pan type of hats out of felt, and we made flower garlands for girls. I took the kids to the Renaissance Fair where they could get ideas that we took back and did on our own. And then we invited families and their siblings and things to come, so it became a big family event. And I did that for multiple years until I was finishing my master's degree, and I had to let that go. But the school picked it up and the PTA picked it up as just a family night. So it became an ongoing event that I think happened for about 10 years. And that led me to the Family Learning Conference that I now do on campus. This is our 12th year. And again, I will post a link maybe if you're interested. I know some of you have worked with me on it before, and some of you had done family nights with me if you've had me for 464. But if you haven't come to this year we're expecting from 900 to 1,000 people. I will have about 20 different presentations. And now that I think about it, I don't know why I didn't require you guys to participate, but I should have and I didn't. However, I will give you credit for coming and being involved, and I'll let you know what that looks like. If anybody has any suggestions, let me know. But like I said, it's Saturday the 16th, but I feel it's really significant to work with our families, to meet our families where our students come from, to get to know them, to see how our students interact with in the context of their family, and building connections with communities. This is hugely significant. So I've made it a priority and a large part of the work I do at Laverne. And finally, advocating for student learning and the profession as a whole. So looking at the landscape of education policy and key players at all levels, from the national level all the way down to your district level, and catching that out. So we're not going to pause here to look at that video because you already did. So I'm going to stop here, and this will be the end of this part 2. Part 3, you will watch Dr. Decker did that part.